Is that Kane?
What's up, everybody? How are you? Happy New Year. And God be the glory. Listen, there's so much happening. The pandemic, Omicron. We have a new mayor. Shout out to Eric Adams. He's been on this show before. Um, Also, I have to mention one of our co-hosts is very ill, Allison Williams. So please keep her in your prayers. With that being said, I won't delve into much of her personal business, but the fact of it is, she is a personal friend of ours. She is a co-host of this show, and we will just keep her in prayer. We have a great show to start off the new year. This is a new year, everybody, 2022. Can you believe it? With so many people that we've lost, we are still here, the blessed here on this screen today. We have some great guests. Everybody, for you who don't know, this is Real Talk with Assemblyman Al Taylor. And we have Al coming in hot this year. He's coming in hot. So he's starting off with a powerhouse guest, a friend of ours. He was my councilman right up the block from me on 141st in Amsterdam. And I was on 141st in Riverside, for those that know. All right, don't nobody knock on my door for autographs. Don't come knock on my door. I still live there. But with that being said, first, let me go to Al, and then we have another lovely lady with us today too, Wendy. With that, Al, how are you, brother? Happy New Year to you, man. You're muted. Mm-hmm.
Folks prefer me to stay muted sometimes, so that was all right by some people. Hey, listen, I am excited to be here. Thank you. Happy New Year to each and every one of you. I have my good friend and co-worker, now my chief of staff, Wendy Olivo, who's been with us in the Denny Fair era for a minute, a young lady from the community. And we are so happy. And Wendy, thank you for interrupting our new borough president's busy day, third day in office. But just the background on this, that Mark Levine, our former city council member, as you just mentioned, and chair of health, chair on health in New York City. So he's got a lot of information that he can share. We can do a lot of different conversations in terms of where we're at right now, where we look like we're going, and then his new role as the borough president. And for folks that are tuning in first time, there is no script. We're talking about what's relevant and what's going on in our city and some of the things that you throw up in there. So I'm going to get out of the way and let my co-host introduce the new borough president, the best borough president in the city of New York. I can say that. In fact, if I don't say that, I would be in trouble.
And absolutely. But without further ado, first, let me just, Wendy, please, I want you to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, because Al just gave you a little short plug, but we want everybody to know who you are. Go ahead, Wendy.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us. My name is Wendy Lorenzetti Olivo, and I am Assemblymember Al Taylor's Chief of Staff at your service. And like Al said, this young lady, thank you, has been around for quite a while, doing what I love to do, serving our community with these amazing members. So thank you so much for allowing me to serve with you.
Now, without further ado, shout out to everybody that's chiming in. Tramel Thompson out of Transit. Tramel, I have to get you on this year. Absolutely. Colin Clark is in the building. Sharon Saunders. Vera with that wonderful last name, Foster. I love that last name because it sounds like mine. And everybody, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe to it. Share it. It's a new year. We're doing new things. I see Simfire22 is on YouTube saying hello, Pastor Al. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Manhattan Borough President, newly Manhattan Borough President, Mr. Mark Levine.
Wow, thank you so much, Bill. Thank you, Reverend Assemblyman Al Taylor, my assembly member. And thank you to the great Wendy Lorenzetti Olivo for being such an incredible pillar in the community uptown for so many years. I am coming to you from the 19th floor of the David N. Dinkins Municipal Building in Lower Manhattan. Somehow this high up, I can still hear the fire trucks there. We are downtown. A building named for one of the giants to hold the office of Manhattan Borough President. Of course, David Dinkins served as Borough President in Manhattan before becoming the mayor, the role in which he made history. And I really feel the history of this place. of the incredible pantheon of leaders who served here. Constance Baker Motley, who was the first woman and the first African-American to serve in this role, and then became more famous as the first Black woman to be a federal judge. Percy Sutton, one of the giants here, and through to the present day, leaders like C. Virginia Fields and Ruth Messenger, and of course the wonderful Gail Brewer, my immediate predecessor. And we are already getting down to work for this borough at a moment of real crisis. I don't think any of us expected that in 2022 we would still be talking about this terrible pandemic, almost entering into our third year. But this is now really a crisis for Manhattan. And while I'm no longer the chair of the City Council Health Committee, I'm going to continue to be a public health warrior. And this is certainly our top priority as I enter this new role on behalf of the borough. So I am excited to be here on Real Talk Chronicles to talk to all of you about the challenges facing our borough, the pandemic, and beyond. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. First and foremost, how was your new year? Was it quiet or does it come in busy?
Well, I caught COVID a week and a half ago. So I spent the Christmas holiday and early last week pretty well knocked out. I didn't have the kind of case that required me to go to the hospital, thank God. But boy, for about 3 or 4 days there, I couldn't get off the couch.
Right.
Such fatigue and aches and low-level fever. This is my second time getting COVID because I had it in the early days of March, April 2020. And, that was a different variant back then. And Omicron now, typically you don't get as much of the lung issues and the cough and the difficulty breathing. I didn't, but it still hit you pretty hard. I would say in my case, worse than the flu in terms of how much it knocked me down. But as is typical, by 3, 4, 5 days into it, I really started to bounce back, and pretty soon was back to normal. Been testing negative on the rapid tests. I tested this morning negative before I came in, so I'm back in action. But I'm here to remind you that Omicron is real. You don't want to get it, so you really do want to stay safe for your own sake and for that of your family.
Mark, let me say this. First, we have another host. She comes on after this one, Dr. Marilyn Corder. She's a world-renowned doctor in the DMV area, and she's been giving us a lot of updates in lieu of the Omicron, the Delta, and all these different variants. With that being said, I think what has happened that people have the government came out and first said, if you take the vaccine, you won't get any of these COVID illnesses, which was a false number because people have been vaccinated and still get sick, but they haven't got that sick. And depending on your immune system, people like yourself and Al are out there in the front lines, even Wendy to a certain degree. With that being said, are you vaccinated?
Yes, I'm vaccinated and boosted.
Okay.
And I'm grateful because, again, my case didn't land me in the hospital.
Right.
And if you look at who is landing in the hospital right now, and we need to talk about that because the hospitals are now filling up and it's a major concern. It is primarily disproportionately people who are unvaccinated.
Right.
And in those instances where it is a vaccinated person who lands in the hospital, it is almost exclusively people who have health complications, like they're immunocompromised, perhaps because they are a cancer patient or a former transplant recipient or have other sources of immunocompromise, or they have serious complications related to COVID, such as diabetes, etc. So for someone like myself, who is relatively healthy and was vaccinated, there was almost no chance that I would land in the hospital, and I didn't. And as I said, while I was knocked down for 3 or 4 days, I bounced back, and here I am 100% back in business just a week and a half later.
Good. Going forward, now you're in this office, this position. What are the things that you want to try to do to educate, see that people are getting vaccinated, people of color, not of color, because the bottom line is these diseases are taking anybody. They have no ethnicity. They have no personal preference on race, creed, or color. What are the things that you want to implement being a borough president?
I was talking with C. Virginia Fields, who, as I mentioned, is one of my illustrious predecessors. And she took office in 97 and then lived through 9/11. And she said that her job, the role of the office of borough president, totally changed in her second term in the aftermath of 9/11. That it became about helping the people of Manhattan recover from that horrible crisis. And I think we're in a similar moment for this office. The stakes are really high in helping this borough come back from the public health shock, from the economic shock, the impact on small business, on nonprofits and arts institutions, the terrible inequality that has been revealed and exacerbated over the past 2 years, inequality in healthcare, in education, in housing, in employment, in criminal justice, all of it. And the long-term challenges of climate change, the shortage of affordable housing. There's so much. To deal with any of it, we have got to manage this pandemic, manage COVID to the point where it's not a crisis day to day, where it doesn't disrupt our life the way it does. We can do that. I am really confident that we can do that we can get past this Omicron wave. The twin city for New York City in this pandemic has been London. They've always been a couple of weeks ahead of us. Every wave we've had, they pretty much got 2 weeks before we did. They got hit pretty bad by Omicron. But I mention this because they're now leveling off in London and maybe even going down a little bit. And so that's probably a sign, and experts think that in another week, 10 days, 2 weeks, we really should be leveling off and over the worst of this Omicron wave. And that's great news, but we have work to do still because of how many cases we're seeing a day. We hit 50,000 almost cases on Saturday. It's like an unimaginable number. And as I mentioned before, hospitalizations are really starting to rise. Most people who get this virus at this point don't need the hospital, but even if it's only 1 or 2%, when you're getting 50,000 cases a day, that adds up. And so the hospitals in Manhattan are really filling up now, and they've had to roll back elective procedures, the kind of scheduled surgeries and outpatient procedures often. They're putting them off now, which is not good. That has implications. And so it is important that all of us play our role in trying not to get this virus, trying to stay out of the hospital, protecting ourselves. And that does really mean avoiding big events, big social gatherings, if you have the ability to work from home, working from home. And there's no doubt that our number one strategy is getting vaccinated, getting your booster, and getting tested regularly. So I am very excited to announce that we are going to have a mobile testing van at our uptown office on 125th Street, between Amsterdam and Morningside, because it's so hard to get a test uptown. And it's opening, depending on when we get the tent set up, either tomorrow or Wednesday. We are also going to have access to self-test kits that people can do at home. It's been very hard to get a hold of them. They're very expensive. So we're going to have a stockpile in the days and weeks ahead that we'll be distributing with local partners like Assemblyman Taylor, but also local nonprofits. And we're going to continue to promote vaccination. and make it easier. It's still too hard to get vaccinated. People still are waiting in line to get booster shots uptown, sometimes for an hour or more.
And let me interject for a second.
Yeah.
Why is that? Because right now, I don't know the answer to the question I'm going to ask, but so there's a two-parter. It seems like the lines have gotten extremely long for people to test themselves to see if they have COVID. Are they under your? I don't know if you know the answer to this. Are these unvaccinated people getting tested, or these are people that are already vaccinated to see if they're getting tested?
People are getting tested. Sometimes it's they're about to take a trip and they want to get tested before the trip, or they've come back from a trip, or they have a big family gathering, and before they see grandma, they just want to get tested. But a lot of it is people who are not feeling well, or who have someone in their family who has gotten the virus. And that has really pumped up the demand for testing.
Right.
We are seeing something like 200,000 people just in New York City getting a test. The whole state of Texas doesn't even test that many people a day. So the demand is huge because we've gotten hit by an Omicron wave. And so people are concerned, or they're feeling symptoms, or they have a family member who's got symptoms or tested positive. So the demand has been off the charts, and it's overwhelmed the testing system. Now, this week, particularly starting today, they have really added a lot of these mobile sites. And, I posted last night, probably the Assembly member's office has the new updated flyer for all the testing sites in Manhattan and all the 5 boroughs, but Manhattan as well. And it's really expanded a lot. So there are more locations throughout Uptown. And we need even to expand that further, which is why I want to open a site at our Uptown office on 125th. But
how long would that take? How long will that be able for you?
Well, we're hoping to be open tomorrow or Wednesday.
Okay.
Right. As soon as I know, I'll let you guys know. If I get word while we're doing this podcast, I'll let you know. But there were a lot of sites that opened today in Manhattan. And I don't know if I can maybe drop the link in the chat, but
you can. Yes, you can. We'll make sure you do that. Mark, let me interject for a minute because I have some people that are questioning you. I mean, I guess we're starting off the year right. I don't know if Al or Wendy sees these comments. First and foremost, everybody, thank you for chiming in. We appreciate it. This is Happy New Year to you all. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your co-host with my co-host, Al Taylor, and we have Wendy in the building, and we have Borough President, Mark Levine. Mark, thank you. One thing you always know, Mark, you're always welcome to come back with information. You're always welcome to the show. Also, too, Simfire on YouTube he said, yes, I agree, the lines are long. My wife waited from 9:30 to 5:10 just to get tested. That's kind of crazy. And that's what leads me to some of the comments. He also said, my son is vaccinated and booster too. He also has diabetes. Was tested positive. It really is hitting home. Yes, people I do know with underlying conditions, it is problematic. Like I said, Allison has underlying conditions and she is in the hospital. Tramel has some comments and statements. I don't know, Wendy, do you see what I'm seeing, or Al? Because I want to read some of the things. He is saying, I have to go back. My computer jumped off. Amir Sealy's in the building too, and he sometimes guests with us. He said everyone is going to get it one way or another. I wish the truth would be said about that. I think Amir, I lost it. Like I said, I think you said it's not a virus. He said, oh, it's not a crisis. This is what you guys keep saying. I don't know. Tramel, I'm really going to get your comments. I know you want to call in and come in. I didn't know we were ready for that today. We'll have you come back. Tramel is a very positive, influential person with transit, and he speaks his mind. He's an activist, and he speaks out. He definitely does. He doesn't agree with what you're saying, Mark. But what do you say to somebody that says this is not a crisis, and this is what we keep saying? I mean, I don't know what.
Look, it is good news that people who are vaccinated, especially if you're boosted, mostly have a mild form of COVID. Thank goodness. They're not landing in the hospital. That you can rest at home for a few days. You might not feel good for a few days, but you just bounce back. You don't need medical care. You don't need anything. So that is amazing. And we can thank the miracle of vaccines for that. And, New York City, we're over 90% of adults are vaccinated. I think it's like 92% have had at least one shot. And that's why most people are getting mild cases. So that's great news. But I'll tell you, this is why we have to take it seriously. 50,000 cases a day means that we are going to impact every sector of life. Over 30% of the EMS workers are out on sick, mostly with COVID right now. And that's impacting, even though those are mild cases, they can't show up to work. It's impacting our ability to have 911 response. There are so many transit workers who are out sick. Again, mostly mild cases. They get better, in a week, but they've had to shut down some subway lines or run them on reduced service. CityMD had to shut down something like 20 or 30 CityMD locations because of how many staff was out sick. And then, of course, there's our hospitals, where I talked to one hospital president today. 25% of the hospital staff is out sick with COVID. Again, mild cases, thank God, but try running a hospital without 25% of your staff. And then we have to talk about the fact that though very few people require hospitalizations, when the numbers are so huge, even a small percentage will overwhelm hospitals. We have 5,000 people in New York City tonight who are hospitalized with COVID. We have over 500 in New York City tonight who are in ICU with COVID. And for many of them, this is very serious. And it also impacts the rest of us because you can't get a lot of routine procedures right now in New York City hospitals. They are postponing procedures left and right. They are not scheduling procedures left and right. And that impacts our health. And we're not through this wave yet. So if 5,000 becomes 6,000, becomes 7,000, et cetera, then more and more of the regular hospital system is going to be shut down to deal with this, because they're converting, all kinds of different wards in the hospital to COVID response, right? So they're not doing knee surgery anymore. They're converting that unit to COVID response.
Yeah. I'm going to defer to Al and Wendy and let them ask questions if they want to. But I have one thing before I do that is a lot of people in here. Shout out to everybody that's chiming in. I see you, Gina, Cheryl, everybody, Stefania. Thank you all for chiming in. Felicia, I'm just naming you all just to want you to know that I see you. But I want Mark to state what he knows and facts and stuff like that. Tramel, like I said, I asked you to give me back some questions that you had. I lost them in my chat. It moved over. With that being said, why do people think this is some kind of hoax? You may not be able to answer this. Some people don't even believe the numbers that right now. There are some people in this conversation, in this thread, that don't believe the numbers that you're spewing out. I mean, how could you prove to them, like, well, take them to the hospital to see? Like, because I don't understand why people are so against this thing. Like, and you can't probably answer that. That's just a beer conversation. If we both have
on the number of cases, I don't think there's one person in New York City who doesn't know someone who was tested positive
right
in the last week or two.
Right.
I mean, when you're talking 30, 40, 50,000 people a day.
Yes.
I mean, just since Christmas, we have probably had close to 500,000 people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so you're going to know somebody. And, as for hospitals, I mean, walk into an ER right now in any hospital in New York City, and it is a madhouse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any ER in New York City is a madhouse right now. And that is directly a response. That is directly a result of the Omicron wave. That's what's happening.
Yes, definitely. I'll yield to Al Taylor or Wendy. Go ahead.
It's just so much. I do see some of the the comments, but I can't see the question that was raised. I think if we look at this, and thank you, Mark, for the information. Thank you for taking the time to join us here in Real Talk tonight. One of the reports I heard, I want to say Wednesday maybe or Thursday, 1010 News reported that every 2.5 seconds, someone in New Jersey was tested positive. They tested positive. So I think when we perhaps, and I just wanted clarity on the question that was introduced by the person for transit. I think if you look at it and you separate it and say, okay, this virus has the ability to cripple you if you have underlying conditions and if you have not had the vaccines. However, if you've had the vaccines, such as, Mark, you could be the poster boy for you don't want to have this.
Right.
You caught it when people were afraid to sneeze and you were suffering and no one wanted to go to the hospital because.
Did Al freeze up? Al, are you still there? Well, let me just, until we get Al back, Mark, let me just read a few statements. Al, you're back? Oh, no, he's not. So Farnia said, I'm not sure if I believe that it's because of ill staff. I think it's a result of the mandate and people quitting, and some is covering it up. Trammell says, how many of those in the hospital now didn't have COVID previously, and why are people like him isn't following the real science of natural antibodies? I don't know what the real science of natural antibodies.
I can talk about that.
Go ahead, please.
On the hospital staffing issue, boy, the mandates were incredibly successful. We had, depending on the hospital, 95%, some of them were more like 97% of staff got vaccinated. And so thank goodness those staff members were protecting their own lives, the lives of their family, their community, their coworkers, and their patients. And now when you walk into a hospital, you have the knowledge that any staff member who treats you is going to have the protection of vaccines. So it's been very, very successful. And there were some staff members who decided they wanted to quit rather than protect themselves with the vaccine, and that's very sad. But overwhelmingly, staff members did the right thing. But the second half of the question, I'm sorry, was
and then I think Trammell said, how many of these is
natural immunity? Well, look, if the good news is that when you get the virus, your body then kind of learns what the virus looks like, and so the next time your body sees the virus, it's a little better able to punch back, right? That's how you develop immunity. But there are some problems there, which is that over time that immunity fades, and that when new variants emerge, that immunity might not protect you much. And it does appear that people who got COVID from an earlier variant, as I did, I got it way back in March of the first year. So I have basically sort of the classic version of it I got. And it turns out that doesn't really give you much immunity to Omicron. The best thing you can have is combine the immunity you got from getting sick with the immunity you get from a vaccine. Then you have the best protection. And, as for people who say, well, I would just rather get sick. I don't know, because, sickness, you running a risk, right? I mean, you could die. Let's be real. 30,000 people in New York City, or 30,000+ people have died from getting COVID. Do you really want to take that risk? I'd rather get my immunity by getting a very easy shot that doesn't kill me. So, really, no doctor would recommend, why don't you just go get sick? Because there's risks, and you can have long-term disability through long COVID. And, even if you're healthy like me, and I get it, but I could have someone in my life, you know, an older family member or someone who is immunocompromised who I could infect. And so you can say, I'll get it and then I'll recover and I'll be good. But in the process, I might give the virus to a loved one who is more vulnerable because of diabetes, because of a cancer survivor, a transplant patient, or is very old and is more vulnerable. So the best thing you can do is get that vaccine, get that booster, and protect yourself. And know that if you then do get Omicron, you'll have a much more mild case.
Thank you, everybody. Hold on for a second. There's so much coming on and going. So, excuse me, Mark, if you see me looking to the left and to the right, because I'm looking at the chats and the conversations. Al knows this and Wendy knows this. So,
hey, Tawana's got a question.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a really good question that Tawana has, actually.
I can see it now. I'm going to forego mine. Tawana asks, I would like to know, how is the contact tracing going? In the beginning stages, individuals receive outreach if they were in close proximity. Where is that at in this space?
Honestly, the contact tracing has been so overwhelmed that they can't trace anymore. And there's kind of no point. I mean, Omicron is everywhere. If you go to a party, assume Omicron's there.
Absolutely. Right,
if you go to a restaurant, assume someone in there. It just, the odds are, I don't even know where I got it from.
Hey, Mark, excuse me for a second. Al, excuse me for a second. I have a surprise for everybody out there in the listening audience. I have another co-host that's coming in, Mark, somebody to help you out with your information.
Great.
My cousin, Dr. Marilyn Quarter, world-renowned doctor from the DMV area. She's here every Tuesday, the second Monday of the month. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring in Dr. Marilyn Quarter. We can't. There you are, Doc.
Good to see you.
Dr. Quarter, this is the Borough President Mark Levine. Mark Levine, this is my first cousin,
I'm at
Dr. Marilyn Quarter.
I'm here.
And you know Al, and you haven't met Wendy. Doctor, what we're saying is they just asked a question.
I'm literally making rounds.
I know. Wendy, can you read the question, or Al read the question Tawana asked? I was
how is the contract tracing running? In the beginning stages, individuals receive outreach if they were in close proximity to others that tested positive.
Go ahead, Dr. Quarter.
No, I'm going to say this. I was just on another show earlier. Unfortunately, this thing has gotten so out of hand.
Exactly.
It's that initially that contact tracing was good because guess what? We were probably only doing 1/10 of the testing that we do now. But now we're doing tons and tons. So we try, like, let's say if somebody's in a daycare or someone went to a bank and they wrote everything up. And key thing now is once you're positive, of course, you isolate, you quarantine, you follow your symptoms, and you do what you need to do with your family, etc. But the contact trace.
You froze up, Doc. Can you hear us? Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. We have the Borough of Manhattan Borough President, my boy Mark Levine, in the building. We have Dr. Marilyn Quarter out of the DMV area. And thank you. She's dealing with 8 inches of snow right now, and she's still building house call. We have Assemblyman Al Taylor, and we have the lovely Wendy Alivio in the building. I hope I pronounced it properly. So everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. We're starting off the year right, man. Listen, we got the Borough President in the building trying to do the best thing he can. Listen, this is Real Talk Chronicles. This is where you ask the real question. It's no sugar-coated, like Al said. Shout out to everybody that's chiming in from YouTube, from Facebook Live. Mark, like I said, anytime, we're not letting you go yet, but anytime you have information, you're always welcome to come back to Real Talk Chronicles, no matter what is involving or anything that you have a public service announcement that you want to be able to share with us. Please, you're always welcome to come back. Al knows that. And once you're here once, you're family. So, Doc, can you hear us? I know you were staying.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We got you now, Doc. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm outside now in the snow. I can hear you.
Okay.
But all I was saying is that the contact tracing started out working well. But now that we have tons and thousands of testing going on, as well as your home rapid testing, etc. You can't rely on the contact tracing. They still have to do it. The health department still do it. But you better make sure that as you are being monitored and checked by your doctor, etc., in terms of all of what you need to do to help yourself, and to make sure that as you have your testing, that the testing that you do, be it rapid, be it PCR, etc., that you follow that through. I want to also say, even if, like, you may not be able to get testing. I know here we have limits on the tests that we get. But I tell, if you have 2 or 3 family members or been in contact with someone who's positive for COVID, and you have those same symptoms, and you may not yet have gotten tested, but treat accordingly, act accordingly to the isolation, the quarantine, and keeping updating with your doctor, because that's certainly something that you want to make sure you don't get too far behind in your clinical symptoms that you get very sick. So you may not have the test, but when everything lines up, I've had folks say, well, I have to go get tested. Well, that might be 2 miles of a line, but at the same time, you're still going to be doing what you need to do when you're in the middle of having COVID, if that makes any sense.
Mark, what do you think? I mean, the doctor's dropping. She came in, she kind of confirming or helping you out with what you're saying, because right now the hospitals, like, she's in the 8 inches of snow, and I had to hit her with the pretty please, and she's out here doing her due diligence. And Mark, just like you're saying, the hospitals are saturated with people that are unvaccinated. And I think a lot of times people, and I'm speaking for personal, what I'm hearing and what I've learned, people seem like if their immune system is better than another person, like the vaccine is a hoax, or it's a gimmick. Listen, we are all different. Like, I always equate it to people, and I try to tell people this story. I've been in the martial arts for 30 some years. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, a detective. I carry a gun, and I'm nice with my hands. So that's double protection. It's like maybe the booster with the gun, right? There are some people that don't want to study the martial arts, but they purchase a gun. So they get a vaccine, they get a 1 shot. There are some people that maybe they walk with security, so they don't need a gun, but they have their own personal immune system. Listen, it's to each his own. But to sit here and personally say that the vaccine right now, after we've lost so many different people, and Dr. and Mark, you can help me out with these numbers. We've lost so many different people to these different variants and in COVID. It's really like, what do you want us to do? You know what I'm saying? Like, the conspiracy theories are left out of my hand. Anybody want to comment? Just
Hey, listen. Let me just jump right here for a second. I spoke over the holidays. Spent a lot of time with family, and this person said, "Well, when are we gonna get this together?" They said, "Take this 1 shot. You don't have to worry about it ever anymore." Now they say, "Take 2 shots." Now they say, "Take the booster." I said, "Okay, stop. Go back to what's his name? Fauci. Fauci. Thank you. I apologize.
That's all right.
Back to his early statement in the Trump administration, somewhere around his 4th or 5th interview, he said, "This is just the beginning. Not only is it just the beginning, it's going to take on so many different variations. And this is no vaccine was there. We don't know what it's going to take to keep up with this, but it's not a one and done." And when we were starting to come out of the curve, someone said, "Well, aren't we there yet?" He said, "No, this is not even the end of the first part of it." And so I told this person I was talking with, go look at the videos and then come back and tell me that someone promised you something different. I think a lot of this has to be with being informed. I said on this space months ago, I would not take this test. I would not take the vaccine. I'm not doing it. I have the antibodies. I'm not doing it. But then, something called—
Who talked you into it?
I heard him say it.
We both got him, Wendy.
Yeah. So something called love and family changed that narrative, because my dad is 81. He'll be 82 in a couple of days. So I couldn't do all that I do in this world and walk back and hug my father without the possibilities of giving him something. And then my kids came to us and said, "Hey, we want to take the shot, but we won't take it unless you take it." So I think if we just boil this thing out, we're not going to convince the whole world of anything. There's always going to be someone that's a conspiracy theory. But I guarantee you, you look at the numbers, and the people that are being hospitalized and spending the most time there are the ones that have no shots at all. And if you have not taken the vaccine and you feeling these things, listen to what the doctor is saying, listen to what Mark is saying, and take preventive measures. Because every time you run into one of these health stations and these hospitals for a sniffle nose, you're going to share that with somebody else and impact them. The kits are designed for you to self-test. But as the doctor said, if you have the runny nose, the itchy throat, carry yourselves as if you have something and start to treat that and isolate yourself so we can combat this thing. Even if you don't want to take the shots, do this. Do it for yourself. Do it for the people around you. Because I'm telling you, I feel like I'm invincible. But, when my nose starts to run, I'll be like, hey, and keep in mind, too, and none of these two have said it, this is flu season. This is normally what happens at this time of the year. Yes. So we were together somewhere. I got family stories over this break. And someone 3 days later.
I think he froze up.
But I'll say this on the flu. Okay. We get flu shots every year. And we do that because the flu also changes. And you want to get an updated shot so that your body is ready for the version of the flu that's going to hit us this season. That's kind of how vaccines work. And we might end up needing an annual booster of our COVID vaccine. It might even be delivered in the same shot as the flu vaccine, right? It might just be that winter's coming. So every September we get it updated. It's a very easy shot and we're protected. And we don't have to walk around thinking about COVID all day because it'll be a much more mild disease.
And Mark, it's something that you said something so on point, and I'm going to ask the doctor because right now this is going to be the doctor and the borough president show for a second because the thing, and I will connect you two after this to keep in touch with each other on certain things. Doc.
Yes.
Flu, Omicron, Delta, like sometimes what is the Is Omicron similar to the flu, and like what's the story?
Well, here's what we see, and the gentleman is right. We're in flu season. We're in the regular winter cold season, allergies, all of that. But we also in the Omicron surge, and it has ticked up. We have 60% more children in the hospital with COVID, and of course the 5-year-olds, 4.5-year-olds on down can't get vaccinated. You have folks who are slightly vaccinated, and then we still have 80 to 90% of our hospitalized patients are not vaccinated. That just frustrates us being the physicians, because we're looking at them. They're on vents. They're sick as all get out. They're dying. They don't have to be in that state. So we get burnout because we're frustrated. There are other patients that need those beds. There are other folks who are trying to get in for whatever procedure, be it elective or even emergency, and it's tying up the system. I cannot say that we can't treat you because we still have to treat you, but the condition that you find yourself in unvaccinated, unfortunately, is because you didn't get vaccinated. So it's sad, but it's one of those things of, well, we told you, and hopefully we're going to still save your life if you haven't gone too far with this COVID attacking your body. I'm into the natural stuff. I talk about it all the time. Zinc, elderberry, vitamin C, fluids, rest, all of that. But I'm also into following the science, which is getting your vaccination. So now I have my patients who are 5 years old and above getting vaccinated. Patients that are 12 to 18 getting their booster. So and that's what I'm recommending, because it is still here. We're gonna still be in this. This is 22 months in. I'm gonna tell you, as I said last year when I was on a couple of news wheels, we're gonna be in this for another 2 years. So just get, either it's the funeral. I've had folks die who were not vaccinated, who are now leaving their children orphans. So it's one of those things. It is what it is. You have the information. It's a domino effect. And, I don't know if I froze.
No, you didn't froze. You didn't freeze. I want to ask Mark a question. Vera has a question for you. Wendy, when Mark comes back, I want to ask him. Oh, okay, he's right here. Doc, I got you. I want to ask you a question from Vera. Mark, what did we do as a borough president? The doctor was just explaining how the hospitals are saturated with COVID people, and you had alluded to that earlier in your conversation with us. What can you do as a borough president, I mean, for the hospitals in New York, because I honestly, I think you're going into a ring with your arms tied down to you, you know?
Well, first, the borough president's, it's a big platform, and we have access to the media. We have access to talk to Manhattanites and to say that this is a time for playing it safe. When you protect yourself, you're protecting the hospital. If you can avoid getting sick yourself, you'll avoid landing in the hospital. If you get vaccinated and boosted yourself, you're also protecting the hospitals. But, you know, it's also important that people only go to the hospital or only call 911 if they really have a medical emergency. Right. The ERs are so overrun, the ambulance system's so overrun. We have people who have body aches and just want a test who are calling 911. And there's just no capacity to deal with that right now. So you can also help our 911 system, our ambulance system, our hospital system by only calling or only going if you really have a medical emergency, which in the case of COVID, I mean, Dr. Corder can talk about this, but it's difficulty breathing, it's chest pains, etc. It is not simply that you have, you know, a low grade fever and body aches and want to test. So there's a lot all of us can do to help protect the hospitals by not getting sick, by getting vaccinated, by only going if we have a real medical crisis. And I'm using my platform as borough president. We have a huge email list. I was on TV multiple times today. I'm active on social media. I'm speaking at community board meetings. I'm using my platform to send the message that we all have a role in protecting each other and protecting our hospitals in the midst of the crisis.
You know, Doc, I don't know. Did you hear what some of what the borough president said? Do you agree with some of the things that he was saying? Like, I mean, you can elaborate, and then I'm gonna come to Alan and Wendy some stuff because. Oh, and then we also have a question for you too, Doc. Vera with a wonderful last name, Forster. I always tease her. He says, "Hey, Doc, how long after having COVID do you have to wait to get the booster?"
Well, things are changing as we speak. Some people have said 90 days, but I've seen it given as close as 60 days. So, you know, the main thing that I'm going to say is consult your doctor with that because, you know, we follow the antibodies as well, and we see how clinically you're doing. But earlier now we're seeing with the booster, with even children, after having the second shot, we're now seeing that the FDA is saying you could get that booster within 5 months as opposed to 6 months because they don't want the gap. The key thing is not having that gap where you're vulnerable, as well as if you get it, that being the COVID, that you have an increased viral load. So we're going to see breakthrough. And that's one of the things I know initially when we talked about vaccinations, et cetera, people like, well, somebody got vaccinated, but they still got it. Yes, we did, or they did get it, but it was so minimal compared to if you never got vaccinated. So it is still your protection.
Doc, also too, Wendy, when you get a chance, after I ask the doctor's question, we can read that question on YouTube if you see that. Or you are out. Doc, when you were hearing what Mark was saying, the borough president, about how, you know, certain things, people just can't come to the hospitals now anymore. You know, you need to understand, like Al was saying earlier, a little sniffle and a flu, or sniffle, or you don't know what you have. You can't just run to the hospital like you know, some people used to because you're overworked and understaffed. Just elaborate on that a little bit more one time for the people that in the back row that didn't hear that.
So, you know, over here in the DMV, we have announcements all day long. Don't come to the hospital unless you can't breathe, unless you're having problems, respiratory, or severe lethargy, because you're going to wait 12 to 14 hours, as well as a lot of people went to the hospital just to say, I want to get my COVID test. That's not what the hospitals are about now. We're on crisis mode. So it's about making sure that you have whatever respiratory support, whatever hydration support, antibiotics or what have you. So no, we're not letting you come in the hospital just to say, I have a runny nose. You got to talk to your doctor. Even the urgent care sites are overwhelmed. So it's a matter of telehealth. Call your doc, follow up, making sure you okay. And if only, and even with pediatrics, only if you're having problems with your respiratory system, with your mentality in terms of that you're really weak and you're cognitively out of it, etc. But just to say I have a runny nose and I have a little cough and I'm going to the emergency room, you will be there, and they may just turn you around as they triage you, because that's not where we are now. We are crisis mode in all of the hospitals.
Wow, awesome. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forther, with my co-host, Assemblyman Al Taylor, and we have the Borough President, Manhattan Borough President, Mr. Mark Levine. We have Dr. Marilyn Corder coming from the DMV. We have the lovely Wendy Olivio. Did I pronounce it right?
Wendy Lorenzetti Olivo, you're forgiven this one time.
I'm not that. I'm not gonna twist that. I'm not gonna twist it. I ain't gonna mess it up.
Language, son.
I'm gonna let you pronounce it. And we have Assemblyman Al Taylor. This is Real Talk with Assemblyman Al Taylor. Mark and Doc, I want you to listen to the questions. If you're able to listen, I know you sometimes you're moving back and forth. I appreciate it. So I'm gonna ask I'm gonna let Wendy read one question, and then I'm gonna read a couple of questions. Mark, I'll let you go. Then Doc, I'll let you go. And then Doc or Mark, whomever. So go ahead, Wendy, read what Tawana's asking.
All right. So Tawana actually has 3 parts here, which I want to combine because they all have to do with each other. And what she brings up first is how we can't, what she says, we cannot shame people who are not getting vaccinated. It doesn't help the cause. You know, we can't throw vaccinated people should not be thrown into the anti-vax or conspiracy theorist title. You know, many different people have many different reasons why they cannot get vaccinated. And then she brings up the point that the best approach, what she says, is finding a helpful tool that addresses the ideas, concerns, beliefs of those that are not vaccinated, so that we can move forward and, you know, explain to people and convince people why it's best to do so if you're able to. And then she also says, we have to use an approach that is all-encompassing. That includes vaccinations, masks, hand sanitizers, social distancing as best as possible, and access to testing. Just her thoughts. Her thoughts are exactly what we are trying to do. And what I wanted to say, Al got a call from the CEO of Harlem Hospital last week. We worked a lot with a lot of the hospitals and the residents of the community during the height of COVID. A lot of my friends who were saying that this was all you know, made up, a conspiracy, it's not really happening, did not have relatives who were sick. Team Taylor, along with everyone else who was working during that time, and all of the elected officials' offices, organizations, community boards, we had to sit through a call at 4 p.m. every single afternoon, every single day, 7 days a week. And during this call, we would be informed how many people had died that day. And let me tell you, when I realized that it was not, I remember one day specifically because I sat here specifically crying my eyes out for the rest of the night because I realized what's going to happen next. We had about 3,000 something people who had perished the day before. Then we get the update the next day and they say 5,000. And I thought it was 5,000 altogether. No, it was 5,000 in addition to the 3,000. Let me tell you, folks, if it's not for yourself, if it's not, you know, if you don't believe in it, believe me when I say the best thing to do is to protect your loved ones. And the best way that we can do that, protect our neighbors, our residents, our families, is to use the best approach, right? And this is Tawana mentioned it here, you know, if you can get vaccinated, get vaccinated. Please remember to wear your mask here, not here, not here, but right here. If you need access to testing and you do not know where to go, information is out there, but I can give you my email address right now, wendy@altaylor4ny.org. Reach out to me and I will assist you in helping in finding a location to get tested at. And that's all I have to say. And Tawana, thank you. Those were absolutely excellent points.
Yes, Mark. I asked Mark, Al, and I'm gonna ask Dr. Corder this, and I'm asking you with your titles on this one, not just as regular people. For the people that are constantly not, I don't want to get vaccinated. I don't want to get vaccinated. Okay, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. What do you say? What is it you could show? Because I don't know if you watch sports, but a person like Karl Anthony Towns that plays for the Minnesota Timberwolves lost 6 people in his family. I dare people go to him and tell him about vaccine is this and COVID is not that. So my question is to you, and then Al, of course, and then Dr. Corder, what would you say to somebody to kind of try to convince them to get vaccinated? We're not going to keep everybody too long after this, but I just have 2 more questions, and we'll go ahead. So Mark, Al, and then Dr.
Well, I totally agree with. I'm sorry to forget the individual's name who made the point that you should not humiliate someone or ostracize them or target them because they have not been vaccinated.
Yes.
That's not going to work. That will only alienate people and make them even less likely to come around. Mm-hmm. You have to respect people. You have to hear their concerns. You have to share with them the unbelievable science behind these vaccines and their record as being unbelievably safe. Billions and billions of people. I think we've had now 10 billion doses delivered globally. Mm-hmm. Probably the most scrutinized vaccine in history. I think that first person accounts, like the one that Assemblyman Taylor offered a few minutes ago, are the single most powerful tool. Mm-hmm. Someone who can say, I had doubts or I was adamantly against it, but here's how I thought through it. And here's why I ultimately got the shot. And I'm glad I did. And that is incredibly powerful. And to have medical professionals like Dr. Corder, who can patiently, respectfully just talk it through with people and say, listen, I hear you. Let me tell you what I'm seeing in my hospital. Yeah. And to hear Dr. Corder say that what I'm seeing in my hospital is the overwhelming number of people coming in are unvaccinated is very powerful. So I think we just have to continue to dialogue, to listen, to be respectful, to have first-person accounts from folks like Assemblyman Taylor, to have experts like Dr. Corder, and hope that ultimately people make the right decision. And in New York City, 92% of adults have gotten at least 1 shot. So we have come really far, and thank God we have, because I don't even want to think what this Omicron wave would have been like if we hadn't been there. And I'll tell you, some of these other parts of the country, I don't know, West Virginia or whatever, that have very low vaccination rates are about to get hit by Omicron. Yes. And I am scared for what that's going to look like.
And you know what's so funny, Mark, before I go to Al and Dr. Corder, it was just so funny. It just seemed like Omicron was like a movie. Like Malika and I would go to a function, and the next thing you know, somebody would say, oh, somebody tested positive right after there. Somebody else tested positive for this. Somebody tested positive for that. Somebody's in the hospital. Like one of our co-hosts is in the hospital. And we're like, it just seemed like it just was just a wave. And it just came. And that's going to segue to my last question before we let you go. Al, what do you think? How do you convince somebody or try to persuade somebody or give them some kind of knowledge? And like I said, I still have some questions or comments I'm going to read. I'm not going to let them be so much of questions. But Al, what would you say to somebody to kind of help them get over that hump?
Briefly, all we can do, and go back to what Wendy said with the borough president, what he's saying, and what the court said. We just have to be consistent with the messaging that we're doing. I don't know that my job is to convince someone to do something that they don't want to do because they're not going to do it.
I agree.
But I would say be respectful, be gentle, be loving, be kind. And if they do it, they do it. That's great. But I would say to those that don't want to take the shot, then be respectful also of those that do care and wear your mask, because some people don't want to take the vaccine and they don't want to wear a mask. So if what you're saying is, I don't believe that it's right, I'm not going to take it, I got you. but would you at least wear your mask to say you give a damn? That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes,
and there's a group of people out there that are like that we haven't addressed. And so our job is not to convince. Our job is to model what we know to be true, and give examples of what it looks like in our space and in places like we're here right now. Share the information that we have. You touched something. I'm just going to throw it out. No one has to answer it. But in the 3 places that I went through, one place the governor was there, another place it was a restaurant, one was a church, 2 were a restaurant, and everybody had to be carded in order to get them. When I say carded, you show your identification and show your vaccination card. But in those places, that's where someone was hot. So you didn't get in without having a vaccine. Yes. You didn't get in without showing that was you. And so you take all the precautions, but you can still catch this. So don't be reckless. If you can be safe, be safe. That's what I would say.
Yeah, doctor, if you're there,
so you have to meet them where they are. You have to address their needs, and you have to show them the science. And you know, this vaccination is for everybody. It's not just for black and brown. It's for everybody, and it's for the good of all of mankind globally. All colors are taken. You know, we have our issues, but we need to make sure that we address where they're coming from, what they're saying.
Right.
So I just wanted, to say, and as we do one patient
at a time, Doc. Is that what we're doing? Yeah.
Yes. And one individual, and we've convinced them, and sometimes it took them having a relative or a friend or someone who's very sick who didn't get vaccinated. I had a friend who died. He was a physician here in Virginia. He was telling his patients they didn't need to get vaccinated. Well, he died. Well, after that, unfortunately, he paid the ultimate lesson learned. And now all of his patients are running to get vaccinated. So it's sad that it had to come to that. But sometimes you have to show that, and you have to talk about what happened, what went wrong here. And, this gentleman was very healthy. And he was saying, like, if you're healthy, if you're watching this and doing that. But unfortunately, he got caught it was a wedding in New York. The bride came down with COVID, 11 people, and 3 people died. So, I hate to hear those kind of stories, but those are the stories sometimes that you have to bring up as well and say, the mRNA, I mean, if you're afraid of those side effects, how about the side effects of death? How about the side effects of you being in your coffin?
Yeah.
So
whatever. That's a cold place.
And that's a real, and it's real. And you may not
have
the heart.
Talk.
That's real talk. And that sometimes you have to. Sometimes it takes a teenager, like one of the gentlemen said, it was their 13-year-old to say, look, I want to get this, but I want you to take this shot with me, Dad. And that's how I've had some of my patients convince their parents and grandparents, and then they all do the vaccine together.
Right.
So that's my input.
Thank you. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Wendy, I know you have something you want to say. I just want to read off a couple of things. First and foremost, Tawana from YouTube. She says, "Oh, you want to read that? Well, hold that. I'll let you read that."
I am a Tawana fan right here. So Tawana says, I had told her she had a great question, and she explained why she's able to come up with these great questions. She says, "I'm a licensed psychologist, and using a motivational interviewing approach works best. Force and coercion breeds anger and resistance." And the reason she said that was because she had made a suggestion. She says, "In my opinion, can we begin to ask, so if you don't want to get vaccinated, what will you do to keep yourself and others safe instead? That way we can get people to commit to doing something that they are comfortable with to keep themselves and others safe." Yes, listening is important. And those are Tawana's words. And
And Tawana, I appreciate you. Please get your information to Wendy or myself. I would love to have you on a show one day in the future so we could just talk about a psychological aspect on a lot of different things. The one thing about Real Talk, I'll tell you, we talk about everything. So Real Talk is Real Talk. Now, let me just run up some things before we let our guests get out of here. Cheryl said, but we must also talk about the vaxxed that are being irresponsible because they feel invincible. Very good point. Because and Al, you mentioned that earlier, being vaxxed doesn't mean you don't have to wear your mask or wash your hands. You still need to be just as vigilant. Let me just say this. I remember when Malika and I got vaccinated, I think the world felt opening up. You start going out here, not wearing your mask. I always tell Malika, thank God for her, because if it wasn't for her, if I was a single man, I'd be out here running the streets. God forbid, I'd probably have the vaccine. I mean, I'd probably have COVID and damn near be on a deathbed or something like that. I really do feel that way. So I appreciate her and I thank her all the time. And with that being said, Colin also said, he said, the people who are being admitted to the hospital are dying from COVID are the ones who are not vaccinated. The ones who are vaccinated are having COVID-19, are living to talk about it. Get the COVID test. Everybody, listen, we will have back and forth with this for so long. Stefania said, but why are they making those that have died or other causes as COVID deaths? Could it be because of the money? I don't know anything about that. We could talk about that later. Shout out to everybody that's chiming in. The one question I have before we let Mark and Dr. Corder go, Al and Wendy, you'll stay on for a few minutes so we can close out. Wendy said, please, Wen says, please feel free to reach out. Okay, thank you. Mark or Doc, are you there? And I'll start with you, Al. Okay, Mark.
Yeah, I'm going to have to hop off in 1 sec. But
this is the last question for you too. Like I said, you're always welcome to come back. And I'm going to ask the doctor this question, and I'll end with Al. Do you think the world might have to shut down again? And if it does, do you agree with it, or you don't want it to happen?
I don't think that will be necessary. I don't think that's going to work at this point. But there's a lot we can do short of that to slow this variant down. And I think if people are just a little cautious for the next week or two and avoiding large gatherings and avoiding kind of excessive social contact, etc., working from home if they have that ability, which not everyone has, then I think we could slow it. But even that is that's a mindset shift. And I think we need people to understand that the next week or two are going to be tough for New York City, and we have to all do our part to help. But thankfully, I don't see shutdowns happening, barring some massive unexpected development. And I'm sorry I have to go. This has been an incredible conversation. I am so grateful to you, Bill, to you, Assemblyman Taylor, to you, Wendy, and to you, Dr. Corder, for just a smart, honest, and as the name of the show says, real conversation about these public health topics. I would be happy to come back anytime to talk to you about health or housing or transportation or criminal justice. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Anytime you want, Mark. I will send a text between you and Dr. Corder so y'all can have each other's information.
Nice to meet you.
How do you feel? I hope you feel better. Happy New Year to you and your family. We'll talk soon. See you later, Mark.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Corder, what do you think?
President Mark Levine, thank you.
Yes. Dr. Corder, do you think we need to shut down? Oh, we should have asked Mark. Text him, Wendy, and see if he has some information he would like to leave for people that if they want to reach him, please. Dr. Corder.
Now that we have a vaccine.
Shut down?
Okay. No, we're not going to shut down.
Okay, we're not going to shut down.
I think we need to slow down, and I think we need to mandate masks. But we don't need to shut down. We have a vaccine. We now coming out even with 2 of the Merck and Pfizer. We're doing once they have COVID. We even have, I call it it's not really a cure, but it helps assist your body in fighting the COVID, and then even with what we have in the hospitals. But we're not going to be shutting down. Unfortunately, many more lives will be lost. And 2,000 lives. I mean, some of the numbers are staggering, and we're 2 years in this, and we still have large numbers. Unfortunately, it's going to be a lot of collateral damage continuously because people are not doing what they need to do and what they're supposed to do. But that's it, and people will continue to die because they're afraid of this vaccine, and I feel that they need to be afraid of death as well, just as well. So that's my comment, Bill.
Yeah, thank you, Doc. I think people don't have it together. It is what it is. We will see you next Monday. Thank you so much. I love you. Please get home safe from cousin to cousin, of course. Get home safe. Tell your driver I said hi to.
Thank you, Dr. Corder.
Dr. Corder, everybody. every second Monday of the month, Dr. Marilyn Corder is with us to talk about all health issues. And trust me, she talks about a lot of other stuff. If you tune into her show, she talks about a lot of issues, social issues. There's a lot of consciousness that comes out of this foster tree, this family tree. I can't say it's a foster tree, but that is the pinnacle. That is where the umbrella starts. Doc, if you have any information you want them to reach out to you or ask you questions or anything else you talk about CBD or anything like that, I appreciate you. I love you. Are you frozen or can you hear me? I think she might be frozen. If she is, until she comes back and says goodbye. Al, what do you think, man? I mean, Wendy, we're gonna close it out in a few, about 5 more minutes. What do you think, bro?
CBD, and when you said CBD, so I'm gonna throw something in for people to mull over, think about, and put in your back pocket for February. Yes. The Assembly member will be hosting a cannabis forum to learn more about the commission and the business of growing a business. If you're starting out, so we will be joined by the chair of the Cannabis Commission. That would be Chair Tremaine Wright. So keep tuned in for that, and we will have more information as we get closer to that date.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Thank you. Al, brother, it's always good to see you, man. You came in with a bang. You came in with a bang, baby.
Hey, listen, we left with a bang.
Yes, we did. And let me tell you something. Thank you. That was an awesome way to end the year with you interviewing all those legislators up there in Albany. That was phenomenal. When I envisioned you and I working together, besides us having longevity in our connection, I envisioned all that because the beautiful thing about it is you had those connections, and the man that I know is real. So that's why it was just apropos for you to be a part of Real Talk Chronicles. You know what I'm saying? Like, our families are families, and we're connected.
I thought I saw him on here earlier.
Yeah. Who? Oh, yeah. I tried to get him to chime in.
Okay. Well,
but it's so much that we could talk about also coming up in the future. The mayor, our friend Eric Adams, and stuff like that. There are things, we have so many great shows. I might even be reaching out to you and Wendy until Allison gets back to, I might ask sometimes maybe to co-host with me on her show. We got to send prayers out to Allison.
Absolutely.
Definitely we want her. Mark said, Bill, are you ready to accept this as a war and the lives lost as just collateral? This stuff is deep. It is, Mark. It is very deep, and I don't even know what to say because it seems like it's becoming collateral damage to a certain degree. I don't know what to do. I always try to say that I'm not an advocate to tell people to take the vaccine. I do believe in pro-choice, but the bottom line is, when we think about germs and diseases and pandemics and stuff like that, there is disclaimers. Like, people, if you have herpes, you have to tell somebody before you have sex if you have herpes, or that's a crime. You understand what I'm trying to say? I mean, let's just keep it real. When AIDS came out, the first thing is, we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I do that because of AIDS. Yeah. So right now we have a pandemic that is killing people, and people are almost like saying, oh, yo, I don't want to use a condom. I don't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can slice this and dice this any way you want to. Like I said, I'm not here to tell people to take the vaccine. I'm not, how I feel about the job. But the one thing is, I am the person to tell you, if you sneeze and you don't put your hand over your mouth and you cough near me, I'm going to check you. You understand what I'm trying to say? Now, that's
a physical check, folks.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. I will also tell you, too, when I was working, if a person spat on you, and they had HIV or something like that, that was a crime because they knowingly did something. So let's all understand the different aspects and dynamics of what's happening out here. People out here don't want to get vaccinated. Cool. If somebody says stay in the house and don't come out, you like, why are you picking on me? I bless all the people that are still unvaccinated. I had a conversation with a few other people. We know it's about the immune system. nobody's just disclaiming that. We all know it's about the immune system, but because your immune system is stronger than somebody else's, it doesn't make you Superman, and doesn't mean you shouldn't get vaccinated. You know what I'm saying? It just, listen, I know me, when somebody says do something, 100 was the score that I wanted to reach. I didn't want to reach 88. I didn't want to reach 76. I
Definitely
wanted
not 65.
That's real talk. Let me tell you something. When somebody's playing sports, they say, give me 100. They don't say, give me 55. Don't say, give me 62. When somebody says, I want to get paid, I want $100. I don't want half of my pay. I want all my pay. So I think we pick and choose our poisons and what we fight for. That's my public service announcement. Before I let Al and Wendy close it out, I have some other disclaimers I want to say. Some PSAs.
Real talk is 100%, y'all.
Absolutely,
Real talk is 100%. Listen, thank you so much for the invitation to participate. All we want to do in this space, on this platform, is to inform. Treat us like used car salesmen. We're going to give you enough information for you to make an intelligent decision. But what you do with it is up to you. Ultimately, it's up to you. Just to throw this up in the air, there is legislation in the Assembly that makes vaccination mandatory. That's one of the pieces of legislation that's going to be on the table. The bill is already out there. I don't know where it's going to go and what part of session it will show up, but there is a bill that someone introduced last year.
And Al, let me just say this. I don't want your answer right now to how you sway, because we'll say that for February. You know what I'm saying? Because we got to get the people to come back and listen to something.
I just want you to know it's going down. And
that's fine. That's fine. Because people need to understand that. Because sometimes, listen, some people may think that this is a bully tactic, but you know what? Listen, you can't get a job without a background check. You can't. Remember, we couldn't go to school without being vaccinated. There are certain things. Listen, I don't know too many when I came on you couldn't get a certain job without having a medical.
Yeah.
So I mean,
and drug testing, all of that. It is what it is. People can pick and choose where they want to fight and draw the line. Right. I'm not trying to get into the weeds on that. But what I am concerned with is that the people that we need to protect are our vulnerable, our seniors, our children. And if we can do that and again, folks, I'm going to keep it 100. I took the shots with my family when I said to you all, I'm not taking that test because I already had the antibodies. So why did I need to take it? Because my family, and when I thought about the experiences that I had to witness my family, my kids get sick, and I had an option in this, I'd rather go to my grave with something wrong with me than to put myself in a situation where my kids could be harmed. And so we use that approach, most of us, for everything that we do. When we're on the streets and we're handing out 80,000 PPEs and we're telling people what to do, we're putting ourselves in harm's way, but we're protected out there to say, consider this, and we're out here, we're visible. And that's all we can do. And people can do with that information what they choose. But if you don't want to take the shot, get out of other people's way. In basketball, it's a triple threat. You could pass it, you could shoot it, or you could dribble it. What are you going to do? You can't just sit on it. So thank you, my brother, for allowing us in this space. I'm always honored, and we look forward to the next one. Wendy,
absolutely.
Thank you for
Wendy. Before I'm gonna just say a little PSA, and I'm gonna let you close us out this evening. How about that? Everybody, for those that don't know, like I said, it's a happy new year. Wish you happy 2022. This Thursday, it's Real Talk. It's my birthday, so we're gonna be happy with that. Also, I was blessed. Hopefully I'll have the magazine. I was blessed to be in a martial arts magazine. They did an article on me in regards to, being a martial artist and law enforcement. So I'm very honored to be that. So to be in that, humility is a beautiful thing when somebody wants to do something for you instead of you doing something for them. That's a beautiful place. So I appreciate that. I will show the magazine when I get it, and hopefully I'll tell you where you can get it at on Amazon. So shout out to Nathan Ingram, Hidoshi. So everybody, Wendy, it is a pleasure having you on this show. You are always welcome. I appreciate you for having my back, but definitely having my boys' back. You are sometimes behind I know he has a lot of strong women behind him, especially my sister Gwen, but he also has a Wendy behind him. So I appreciate you. Please, I'm going to let you close us out with some positive affirmation, where people can reach you to help Al. Oh, go ahead, Al.
Breaking news. Hold up. Breaking news. Ashley said yes. She was proposed to tonight by her boyfriend on her birthday. Trey, big shout out. So they're going to be married. Big shout out to my daughter, Ashley. We got 4 girls.
Oh, congratulations. And happy birthday to your daughter, too.
Thank
happy
you.
Birthday to Capricorn. You know, I love that.
6th? You're the 6th, right?
Yeah, I'm the 6th. Exactly.
So my dad and you on the same day.
That's what we talk about.
So, Wendy.
Congratulations, boss.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. Whether you're going to get vaccinated or not, you are much better informed on how to protect yourself and others tonight. However, if you need further information, if you need information on testing sites, vaccination locations, how to get masks, how to get sanitizers, please reach out to me at Wendy at saying at twice confuses it. My email address is wendy@altaylor4ny.org. The 4 is FOR. wendy@altaylor4ny.org. Please feel free to reach out. And we at Team Taylor's office will all be happy to help you find the location that you need to find. And again, thank you all. And please, please, please stay safe.
Happy New Year, everybody. This
Happy
is
New Year.
Happy New Year.
2022 has a really good ring to it.
That's what I do. I like those numbers, baby.
Yes.
Everybody, good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Hold on, you two. Hold on. We can talk in a